The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hello, everyone, and thanks for joining Ashley Koff RD's webinar, Better Bariatric Nutrition for Better Health. We are joined today by Elizabeth Roarke, who was a bariatric patient in 2004 and now a bariatric patient coordinator. There will be a Q&A at the end of the webinar, so please send in any questions via the chat box. This webinar will be posted to Ashley's YouTube and website in the coming month, so you can find it there if you would like. Right, over to you, Ashley.
Thanks, Matt. I'm so excited about this today. So thanks everyone for listening at whatever point you're listening, because this is a bariatric, and bariatric nutrition is something I have been passionate about ever since I was introduced to the space of bariatrics in around the year 2000, 2001. I did my dietetic internship at County Hospital in Los Angeles, so that's LAC, USC. And that was where I first encountered, that was my first experience with a couple of bariatric patients. And one of them was a young child, teenager, who had had the surgery. And to be honest, the experience really turned me off of bariatrics. I was really struggling with his experience, and he was not getting in good nutrition, and his family was not being supportive, and a lot of other dynamics that can happen, but it really turned me off. And I met one or two other patients there who, as part of my assessment, had had bariatric surgery. And so I started to understand that they had different nutritional needs. Understanding at the time, one of them I encountered was on pureed and was telling me that they were taking Flintstones, the Flintstones supplement. And so that raised some questions for me, because I didn't recommend those even for the kids that I was working with. So a lot of it just said to me, wow, like this bariatric thing, I don't know what it is, but it was probably also the ego of my starting out in my career and my feeling like I could help anyone. I, Ashley Koff RD, could help anyone lose weight and do it in a healthful way. And what I came to learn over the next couple of years was that while I could do that, I often could not prevent people from regaining weight, which is one of the cycles that we know happens so frequently when you look at the diet statistics. But the other part was I actually could not help everyone lose weight. And there are a number of different factors for that. There are things where your body, if you already have a disease, or if you have certain things going on from a lifestyle standpoint, where that weight loss isn't going to happen. And so I started to understand bariatrics, so weight loss surgery. At the time, there were really just one or two types, as a tool. But what I wanted to understand was how could it be a better tool. And at a very just serendipitously, or I believe in life there really are no coincidences. And that coincidence that did happen was somebody, a dietitian at Cedars-Sinai, a wonderful hospital in Los Angeles, was a dietitian there was going on maternity leave. And so they needed somebody to fill in for her. And at first I was like, I don't think I can do this. I'm going to be outpatient, but I'm not sure that I will be able to, or will be exceptional in this space. And, would I be able to do it? And then I went in and met with everyone and realized that bariatrics is so much centered around not just the dietitian, but around the nutrition, both where your nutrition is before and certainly where your nutrition is after. And that better bariatric nutrition is really the secret to getting those better outcomes, which is not, I know we call it weight loss surgery, but I like to call it health gain surgery. And so I really focus on the outcome of better bariatric nutrition, and the outcome of bariatric surgery being the ability to get and keep your better health. That's so important, because there are so many things we can do by way of weight loss that does not translate into better health. We can stop eating altogether, or we can, not take the right supplements or things like that. So anyway, I'm here today because this topic is one that is so important, and also one that I, in the last 10 to 15 years, since that time period, have spent a lot of time looking at what could be better about the nutrition recommendations. My guest today is going to help me illuminate that for all of us, and share some really personal insights as a patient. And I am here also because my passion, one of the challenges that I really found for my bariatric patients is you're meant to take supplements you need to, because we can't get all the nutrition in that we need from your food. And the supplement quality or the supplement ingredients or the blends were not where I wanted them to be. I was struggling to find good quality that also people love the taste of. So I am now in the process of launching with Smarty Pants a collaboration called Smarty Pants Bariatric Complete. So I invite you to check that out as well. Okay, so what we're going to go over is what do we all want, and then why turn to bariatric, what we call weight loss surgery, and then what is, when I use the phrase better bariatric nutrition, what is it? And then most importantly, how can we get that, and how can we keep the better health results that we're seeking from bariatric surgery? And that's going to bring me to an interview with Liz Roarke, who is a nurse and now currently a bariatric coordinator at Palmdale Regional Medical Center. But probably the most fun for me, and again, no small coincidences or no coincidence, in 2004, I met Liz when I was at Cedars-Sinai, and I had not seen her or talked to her since. And last year when I was in New Orleans with the launch of the Smarty Pants Bariatric Complete, we were at a big conference. We crossed paths, and over a foot massage and a back massage, because I was strategically seated next, our booth was right next to that, got to catch up a lot on what she's doing. And I think you are just going to find her, not just her results fascinating, but also her tips and tools. So we will jump into that in a moment. So when I stand up on stage and ask people, I like to start off like, what do we all want? There is nobody ever that answers better nutrition. If they do answer better nutrition, then I know that they are a plant in the audience trying to brown nose me or think that they have the right answer, et cetera. And so to share the right answer, but we all want better health. And if we don't have better health, we want to get it and keep it. And if we have better health, then we want to make sure that we can keep it. And so when it comes to talking about, how are we going to get it, there are a lot of questions. And a lot of times those questions, most often those questions lead us down the path of looking online or interviewing friends or talking to our trainer or talking to our therapist or talking, watching on TV and getting all of this input on what should we do. And if overweight, if obese, and certainly if in either of those spaces dealing with any additional medical issues, diabetes, any other health issues, then all the more so we're searching, because we know that we want to be able to lose the weight and lose the weight healthfully and really help our body heal. But the question mark is, how can we do that in a way that doesn't mean that we're going to find the weight again? It doesn't mean that we're going to, in losing weight, have to give up our lives or stop eating out or enjoying time with others. All of these things come to mind. So the real question is, how do we do it? And I think that that's where I end up interacting with a lot of patients when they ask me, why bariatric surgery? Why weight loss surgery? Well, one of the reasons is because while we can do diets, and those diets do work, right? They definitely work. Everyone that I have met who has been a candidate for bariatric surgery, and even those who come in wondering about bariatric surgery, and even if they decide not to, they have been successful at some point on a diet. But then life happens, and that life happening could be that they're injured and as a result they aren't able to be active, or maybe it's they're pregnant and then after pregnancy they don't lose the weight, or maybe there's a life issue that happens where they're taking care of someone else, or maybe there's personal tragedy or concern or just unhappiness. There's so many factors, right, that keep that diet from being successful. And so when they go into their second diet, then they feel a little bit more nervous. It's like, okay, I'm hopeful, but I also know that it hasn't worked. I feel like a failure from the last one. And now if you magnify that by the fact that the average American who has been on one diet has been on 9 to 10 diets, we can see that a lot of that failure makes us think that there isn't anything that's going to be successful. One of the other things is that health issues do pose weight loss challenges. When your blood sugar is not stable, when you're dealing with heart issues, when you're dealing with things that may keep you from being mobile, when you're dealing with challenges to what you can and can't eat, all of these things can really pose weight loss challenges, including hormonal challenges. Another piece is that, as I was mentioning before, a lot of people, we've tried and tried, and we're also willing to try again. So what I appreciate and often have to remind people, there might be a stereotype that, you know, somebody who is a weight loss patient, a weight loss surgery patient, oh, excuse me, I hit that going too fast, you know, is giving up. You're not giving up. You're looking for a better option. And so because you're willing to try, and I really think that's important when I'm evaluating someone for bariatric surgery is, are you willing to do the work? Because bariatric surgery is not a solution that happens for you. It is a tool that enables you to get those better outcomes, those better results. We are also not one size. And I think that's really important for bariatric surgery evaluation, is because a lot of diets out there propose that, hey, if you just do this, right? Or this is what I have everyone do, or this works for everyone. And the reality is that you're looking for your better solution. We each want our better tool, our better solution. And bariatric surgery is able to be extremely personalized. And I think that that piece is one of the positives where bariatric surgery succeeds and other diets and programs do not. And bariatric patients can do the work, absolutely can do the work. The problem has not been a willingness or an ability to do the work in the past, but what are the quality of the tools I'm being offered? You know, it's not about, you know, can I just commit to drinking shakes for the rest of my life? But what are the quality of the tools that I'm being offered, and what am I learning and how am I adjusting to that? And then the final piece, I'll keep restating this, I think it's so important, and Liz is going to be my shining example of this, which is, you know, that the goal is not actually weight loss. The goal is actually health gain. And that's so critical, because it doesn't mean that because you have bariatric surgery, you can't get cancer. Because you have bariatric surgery, you can't get diabetes. Because you have bariatric surgery, you can't get heart disease. You may significantly decrease your risks of those because your weight loss and in particular your fat loss is happening. But what we have to focus on is making sure that we're nourishing you and having you get the right nutrients as you go through the experience of your weight loss, because without that, your body isn't going to be as well equipped to deal with what it needs to deal with when anything threatens your better health. So what is better bariatric nutrition? And I fundamentally do know that there is better bariatric nutrition. I used to stand up there on Saturday mornings at Cedars and give this presentation just to make sure that I'm clarifying, you know, for any of you that are listening because you're considering bariatric surgery, this is important, but also for any of you who are working with patients, I think it's equally important for you to be able to clarify some of the misperceptions. So one of the things that, in my opinion, is a misperception is that it's not a high protein diet. What we have to remember is that if your stomach is the size of a football and we shrink it down to the size of an egg, we still have certain things that we need. We need essential fatty acids, we need fiber, we need plant nutrients, but we especially need to make sure that we're getting in enough protein. And so what happens with that is when we shrink it down, there are things we can get from a supplement standpoint, and you could call your protein powders a supplement, but what we need to do is make sure, the reason that the diet is protein emphasized is that egg needs to make sure that egg size versus the football, we need to make sure we're getting in enough protein to support your lean body mass and to support the enzymatic reactions that need to happen in the body that depend on protein. So protein emphasized. And that's important because I have had a lot of people, especially in the years after their bariatric surgery, really go to very high amounts of protein. And too much of anything is still too much. So what we want to be thinking about is that your diet, your better bariatric nutrition is always going to be protein emphasized, but it's not high protein in terms of excessively high numbers. It is also not carbohydrate free. But what we are focusing on are small amounts of better carbohydrates. Now, early on, right after surgery, because the protein needs are so significant and because your certain nutrients are limited, certain forms of food are limited, we might be very low on carbohydrate. But many bariatric patients in their dieting life have done carb-free diets. We cannot be carb-free for life. So what we have to figure out for a better bariatric nutrition plan, you know, a couple months out and onwards, is how to integrate carbohydrates that give us great nutrients like magnesium and, folate and a lot of our B vitamins, but we want to make sure that we're getting smaller amounts of those. In the same way, it's not fat-free, but full of better fats. We need to make sure we're getting in our essential fatty acids, and that can be challenging. But the nice part is there are nutrients there are foods and ingredients that provide both fat and protein. So like my hemp seeds, I love to make hemp pesto for my bariatric patients, or I might make a cashew pudding and add in a protein powder in there, and then we're getting the healthy fats in and also getting in the protein. It is also better hydration from both water and potassium, making sure that we're getting in both of those. And one of the things I'm going to talk to Liz about is how do you balance that? It's a lot of drinking. If I'm drinking proteins powder in the beginning, how do I make sure I get in the water that I need? And what are good sources of potassium? Fun things like avocado, maybe even using coconut water as the base of a protein drink. We'll talk about ways to get in more potassium. But we also need key minerals like magnesium, calcium, and zinc. One of the things that has changed in the 15 years that I've been a dietitian, but also involved with bariatrics, is that we used to just really focus on calcium. And today we know that calcium undirected and nutrients like vitamin D and magnesium help direct the calcium to go to the bone. Undirected, that calcium can be really dangerous for us. It can become arterial plaque, or it can create kidney stones. And so what we want is enough calcium, and a good quality calcium like a calcium citrate, but we want equally to make sure we're getting in enough magnesium, because remember, magnesium belongs inside of our cells to turn off our stress response. And it doesn't mean because you've had bariatric surgery that you no longer have stress in your life. In fact, especially, I'm sure Liz will talk about this, for a good period of time, there's a lot of stress associated with, am I getting things right? And, how am I adjusting to some of my new my new habits and some of these things and interactions with people. And so magnesium is so critical, and especially for helping heal and develop a better blood sugar, and zinc to support immune system. Your vitamins, I mentioned vitamin D, so critical for immune health, cancer prevention, your B vitamins for energies. But it is hard to get all of this in and to do it more often, which is what we need. So one of the things about better bariatric nutrition is it is hard. It is hard work. So what we're here to do today is to help make it a little bit easier for you, and also to direct you to resources that I think that can be helpful for you in that part. But recognize, I always say this to people who are evaluating having the surgery, no matter, some of the surgeries are increasingly less invasive, all the way down to the balloon or the band, versus the bypass. It does not matter. It is hard across the board, and I think that's key. And it is also going to be based on better liquids, especially in the beginning, and that's an adjustment. Many of you may have tried or have prescribed an all-liquid diet for a period of time, but you knew that was for a period of time. And also, a lot of the liquids that are on the market are not better liquids. They are not made from better quality ingredients, or they do not provide the better quantity of protein and carbohydrate and fats and things like that. And so we're going to have to make sure that we're clear about what are some of those better nutrients. I like to say it is your better, not perfect nutrition plan more often. That's really important because we need to know even before you have surgery. Do you have any, are you on any medications? Do you have any nutrients that you're deficient in even before surgery? What does your life look like? How are we going to make sure that you are set up to be successful in your life? And one of the ways we look at that is making sure that we are helping you accomplish your better supplementation daily, that you're able to get that part in, because that helps you avoid hair loss. It helps you maintain muscle strength. It helps you maintain energy. It also takes the pressure off of needing to get certain things in from a supplement standpoint. And so the real key is finding the right supplement protocol that helps you. And certainly that's where my Smarty Pants Bariatric Complete can be helpful, and it might not. It might not be the right one for you. Or it may be that you take that and then you personalize it with an additional supplement. So some of the tools that I have to offer, we'll talk a little bit more, and I can send you over to a lot of my resources, including I have about 10 YouTube videos on the Smarty Pants site on your channel on YouTube, answering questions that are frequently asked of me in the bariatric supplement space. One of the things that you'll notice about Bariatric Complete that is different than the majority of the products that are on the market is that we are, it's what I call modular. So you have a couple of the gummies, and you also have the chews. And what I like about this is by having different pieces, you're able to break them up during the day, and this helps you come up with what's right for you at different stages throughout your bariatric. So right after surgery, you might only want to have one or two of these, but have them at every time that you have a nutrition break, like a protein drink or that kind of a thing. And then later on, you might split it up into an AM and a PM, and you might be somebody who, because of your nutritional status, you might need to double up on it. Not everybody does, but you might need to double up, or there might be a time period where you need to double up, and then you're fine. And what it allows you to do is work with your practitioner on that part. The other thing I think is really unique here is that I added nutrients that, for example, your essential fatty acids, your fish oil. So you're getting in your EPA and your DHA, sustainably sourced. You're not getting in any gross artificial ingredients or anything that I would not want you to be getting in. And then also nutrients that are like CoQ10, which if you've taken a statin drug at any point, you should be taking CoQ10 and making sure that you're getting more of that magnesium. So we've got, in addition to things like your thiamine and some of the other nutrients that are important for bariatrics, this really has it, with the exception of iron. Iron is one that I would have you supplement if and when you need it based on what your practitioner is mentioning. And then I also on my website have a menu. I have 7 days worth of purees, different ideas for how to get in better nutrition. My recommendation is as soon as possible to be moving away from things that are more processed and moving into more whole foods, and also strategically using those. Like, what could I add my protein powder to that could, add the extra protein to it, but that could help me get something that's both delicious, because better nutrition better be delicious, and also that can help me, meet my overall nutrient needs. So those are some of my resources. And now I'm going to share with you one of my absolute favorite resources who will help us talk about how we can get and keep it. When it comes to better bariatric results, I can't think of anyone who embodies just what this surgery, what this tool has to offer people. And if you want to know more about Liz, I was able to do a full interview with her about her whole background, growing up, and what led up to her deciding to have surgery. I think it's a great story. Liz, I will share with everyone that, there was a time period where your mom suggested it. And like many of us, we get very turned off when our mom suggests something, but when a doctor and or a friend or a colleague wants to do it with us or suggest doing it, that can be much more motivating. And Liz is both a mother and a wife. She's also a nurse, and she herself had bariatric surgery in 2004. We have some of her before and after pictures here. She is what I call a healthy life thriver. She is literally living, when we talk about going from having, being in a place where you're considering surgery to what can bariatric surgery offer you, and it really is that better health. I think Liz is like such a great example of that, and including which she has done a triathlete and has done marathons. So we're going to talk quite a bit about that. So Liz, I wanted to welcome you in. I'll leave this photo up, so this page, and get to say hi to you. It's so great to be reconnected, and welcome over to the webinar.
Thanks, Ashley. It's great to be reconnected with you too. That was an absolutely amazing moment in Louisiana. It's like, I know you. And you're like, I know you. And realized that you were my dietitian when I was getting ready for bariatric surgery. So, and here we are 12 years later.
Yeah. So first of all, I have some key questions. I want to break them up into 3 groups. We're going to talk about how we actually get that better nutrition that I was talking about and some of the things that you learned and experienced. And then we'll talk about activity, because you have certainly mastered and I think have a good sense of what people can be doing, and maybe debunking some of the myths. And then I'd love to have a little what I call real talk, where we talk about, like, what do you say to people and how do you handle all of that? And so I want to dive into that. But as I said to people, they can certainly read our interview on my blog. But I thought maybe before we jump into getting the better nutrition in, that I thought you could tell a little bit about, so it's 2004, you decide to have surgery. And why don't you talk a little bit about what you personally did leading up to your surgery?
So I had this realization. I had been talking with a coworker, and she said to me, we should have that surgery. And as Ashley alluded to before, my mother kept saying, oh, her friend had had surgery. I should really do it. Well, I really got frustrated listening to that because, I mean, I looked in the mirror every day. I knew I was really big. And so then I was talking to this coworker. I was an emergency room nurse at the time. And I was talking to this coworker, and she said, we should have that surgery. And I'm thinking, you don't need that surgery. But that was my thought, and this is what she was thinking she needed because I was so much bigger than her. And so I decided, okay. So I went to my medical group. I was an HMO at the time. I went to my medical group. It was a new doctor, new medical group. This person had never seen me before, which is what I was comfortable with because as we know, when you're morbidly obese, what do you not want to do? You do not want to go to the doctor because you don't want to hear, I'm a little concerned about your weight. You know what? I could tell you I was a professional dieter. I should be by this time a lifetime Weight Watchers member. But you know what? I kept plugging along, so I finally got the nerve, and I went to this doctor, and I needed refill on my blood pressure medicine, and I had headaches every day. So I go in and I tell this doctor, he goes, what are you here for? I said, well, I need my blood pressure medication refill. I think I have sleep apnea, and I want bariatric surgery. I don't think I even took a breath during any of that. And so then I started thinking, what do I have to do? What do I have to do? They made me go for, I think it was 3 months, 6 months, I can't remember. And so they made me go and have, do these classes and stuff. And the classes really was just me and another nurse. And I actually did a lot of education for her going through this whole process. She goes, I didn't know that. I said, well, this is what I've researched. This is what I've learned. And so we were like, okay, I finished my thing. So I went back to the doctor. They put a referral in, and down to Cedars I went. I can tell you, I did not go out and go crazy thinking I would never, ever be able to eat again, because you can. You absolutely can. And as a matter of fact, I tell people not to be afraid of food. It's just change your attitude and the way you look at food. So I didn't go out and have that last meal that I needed to go out and eat, a 2-pound prime rib or whatever it was. I didn't need a big slab of beef in front of me with all the trimmings. I just basically kind of just played it low. I kind of played around with some protein drinks, wasn't real sure what tastes I liked. And just so you know, again, as nothing is cookie cutter in weight loss, nothing is cookie cutter in weight loss surgery. And there was definitely nothing cookie cutter in the taste of protein drinks. So I played with a lot of protein drinks, finally found one that I liked, and then moved forward to November of 2004, November 15th to be exact, 2004, and I had the surgery. But it was just really being prepared and getting my mind around it and going to support group, reaching out, make sure you've got that help before you go, because you have to establish, people who are kind of like you. They've got the like needs that you have, that they're on that same journey. But when you're on that same journey with people, the one thing I tell people is that, you've established yourself with a doctor, and this is the doctor's regime. I always tell people, stay with their regime, because you could go on the internet and you could read 10 different things from 10 different people, and you know what? You really need to stay with what your physician has prescribed for you, because of the fact that this is the way they're practicing. You are their patient. I mean, they could really be doing something that's completely crazy, that's not really good for you. So that's the way I looked at it. My doctor said, I'm going to do this, and that's what I did. I was very regimented before, and I maintained being very regimented after. 12 years down the road, I still am very regimented. So that's kind of like that was my whole process.
Yeah, and we've talked about it too, and I recall like you came in and you were like, I've tried these proteins or this, what do you think about this supplement? And I think like that preparation and going in and being able to have that engaged conversation with me or with your practitioner at that time period is so key. So I think that piece is really important. And I totally glossed over. I know I have it because of your I have it in the interview that we did. But let's go ahead and tell everyone, just because, you can see in the photos that this has been transformational for you, but Give me a little bit of your stats, both your weight and then also what you have gone on to do physically since having your surgery.
Oh my goodness. Well, I was 335 pounds, but I know I was more than that because I wouldn't get on the scale. And I had lost weight before surgery. I probably lost a good 20 pounds before surgery. So I had the surgery. You know what? The minute I had the surgery, I hit the floor running, literally. You know, when they told me to get out of bed, I got out of bed. They told me I needed to walk, I walked. But when I went home, and I'm going to tell you, when you get home, you're kind of like, it's like bringing home a new baby. Oh my gosh, what do I do? I was, despite the information that I had, despite the packet that I had, I was like, oh my gosh, what do I do? You know, it was a little overwhelming to kind of move forward, but I thought, okay, you know what? I have to exercise. I have got to exercise. And I was so amped up that I am going to change my life. I am going to be healthy. I am going to eat right. You know, I am going to do this because I am never going to be that lady in the purple dress that's on the screen. Never. Absolutely never. And I can tell you, I will not allow myself to go back there. I'm focused. I'm very, very focused. You know, from day one, you know, and I know that a lot of you have probably gone to this weight loss program or this weight loss program, this commercial weight loss program, whatever it is that you've done, and you know you had to keep that food log. I detested that food log. I would make up my food log just so when I would go into meetings, I didn't look like I wasn't doing something. You know what? And I know you've all done it because we've all done it. Mm-hmm. And guess what I keep every day? I keep a food journal every single day. And you know why? It keeps me on track. It absolutely keeps me on track. I'm accountable to writing that down, you know? And at the end of the day, the only person I'm really accountable is to me. But if I put it in that book, I've done it. I can tell you if I've done something I shouldn't, I don't put it in my book because, first of all, I have to show that book to my trainer. And I'm going to get boom, boom, boom. What did you do that for? And I would probably honestly tell you, probably about 98% of the time, I am on the mark because I am not going back to that lady in the purple dress. But some of the things that I've done is someone I had met, him and his wife, and I was on what would you call it? Basically a website for people who've had bariatric surgery. And this one gentleman sent me a message and a bunch of other people that were on the site. Hey, you should try to train for a marathon. I mean, I'm just like out of surgery. I'm like, are you kidding? I'll die. Fast forward 6 months. Guess what Liz is doing? She's training for a marathon. Yeah, training for a marathon that took her 8 3/4 hours to finish. But I finished it in Hawaii. It was tough. It was tough. It was tough. I cried and I cried and I cried. But I started exercising when I went home. You know, I would go out and go for walks. And I just didn't do one walk. I did several walks because, first of all, you do not want to sit still after bariatric surgery because there are risks that can happen from being immobile. The big issue is blood clots. And that was a thought I had. I have to get out. I have to walk. I have to move. You know, so I did. And, you know, it led me after I was approved to go in and start working out. I went to the gym. But the thing that I only did, and that's all I thought I needed to do, was to do cardio. I have since learned different, which we'll probably talk about later. But, I mean, so then I used to go to spin class. And the people in spin class were talking about, oh, yeah, we're going to go on this bike ride. Okay? I'm thinking, oh, I need a bike. So my friend, who had surgery with the surgeon that I work with, she says, oh, my husband and I have bikes. So we get out these old rickety bikes. I could tell you, I couldn't even figure out how to shift it. And we rode from all the way in Lancaster, all the way out to Edwards Air Force Base, which really is only about 20, 30 miles, not too bad. But you've got two women who all they've done is spin class, and now they're trying to figure out the bike and not look like a hamster on the bike. So we started going to spin class, and then we did this. And then pretty soon I bought a bike, and then she bought a bike, and then my husband bought a bike, and her husband bought a bike. And pretty soon we were part of this cycling community. So then we started cycling very heavily. I mean, if our eyes opened up and we didn't have to be to work, we were on our bikes. I've done some grueling rides. Anybody that lives here in California, I rode my bike over Mulholland, past the Rock store, all the way down to the beach, and then back to Thousand Oaks. It was grueling. It was 100 miles of gruel. That picture is me climbing up the switchbacks on Mulholland. And I can tell you, there were some bad words that were coming out of my mouth. It was bad. It was bad. And people know when I ride my bike and I'm really struggling, those words just come forth. And then the other picture there is that we had had a bariatric dinner, and that was a picture that the photographer took. Just this picture in the wedding dress, that's my wedding dress from 33 years ago, and it's a size 10, and I can put it on, and it's big. So I came from that girl who, when I met my husband, I was 135 pounds, the girl in the purple dress, and then wham, up to over 335 pounds, down to the lady who can sit in her wedding dress that's loose again. But it's because I had the surgery, yes, but it's because I'm living a healthy lifestyle. I watch what I eat. I make sure I make the right choices. I don't eat anything processed foods. My meals are all very, very clean. My meals are very balanced. So that's how I eat, and that's what I log in my food log. And that's basically what I do on a daily basis, and that's how I progressed in my surgery. So over the past year and a half, 2 years, I remember I said I was just doing cardio. It wasn't enough. It wasn't enough, and I wasn't going anywhere. And so I went to a trainer, and she says, you can't do cardio alone. So then I started lifting weights and stuff like that, and have recently lost 35 more pounds. So, but I've done marathons. I've done 100-mile bike rides. I've done CrossFit. I do boot camp 3 days a week. And I also...
You're putting us all to shame. I love it. Or total inspiration. And I love that piece. I thought what we do now is a little bit more rapid fire. I wanted to ask your opinion on some of these nutrition questions that are really the big ones that my patients will ask me either before they're having surgery or things that come up. So we'll go through them and get your thoughts. So one of the key things is that people will often try things or have things that they love before surgery, and then after surgery, their taste buds change. And so, A, did you have that experience? And B, do you find because you're also working with patients now, do you find it's temporary, or do you find that it's lasting in terms of the taste bud change?
Well, the taste bud changes, everybody's a little bit different. When I got to the point that I could eat stuff that I could chew, that I was definitely clear beyond that point, I tried shrimp, just shrimp. It was the most disgusting, and I would be one of those people that would go to the buffet and, the plate was piled higher than I could see. I tried the shrimp, and it was the most disgusting, slimiest, gloppiest tasting thing I'd ever put in my mouth. It was disgusting. And that went away. That went away. What was the other thing? Just recently, I can't eat anything chicken. This is a recent thing. So I believe that these changes can continue. I can't eat chicken. Beef is very rare. Pork is very rare. Basically, I've become more of a pescatarian, which is fish. Mm-hmm. So I have to watch that and balance it out, because, I don't want fish all the time.
Right.
I crave it. I truly crave it, but it's just like the other stuff just doesn't taste good. Something I never drank before, and I don't drink it more than 1 cup a day, is coffee. I never could drink coffee, love the smell, hated the taste. And now I enjoy a cup of coffee every once in a while. It's not one of those that I have to have it. I enjoy it. And patients tell me the same thing. It's a big one where it leads with the patients is their protein. They loved it before surgery, and now they hate it.
The supplement, yeah. I find it so important, so important to have a couple on hand, even if you've identified, like you did ahead of time, okay, this is going to be the one that I really like. So one of my tips on that part is to have others on hand in case you don't like the taste of the one right after surgery, etc. So
and that's what I tell them. And that's
yeah.
what I tell them. Make sure you have a good sampling. There's places that you can go and you can order full servings but get samples. You know, that
right.
you can get a variety of all the flavors and stuff.
Yeah, totally.
And a lot of the pre-made milk-based proteins that patients like, I know a lot of you go to Costco or Sam's Club or something like that and get proteins like that. Again, you may love it before, but after surgery, you're just hating it. Just hating it. You're hating the taste, you're hating the texture, and texture sometimes turns to be a big issue for patients after surgery too. It never was much really with me except for that shrimp that, few times. I was actually quite devastated thinking, I'll never be able to eat shrimp again. But for me, that went away. But there are textures. Patients will tell me, I used to love cottage cheese before, but now it just sits in my mouth and it just makes my mouth get foamy and icky tasting. Is exactly what they tell me.
And then there are some textures that we, especially with my band patients and some others that we don't want you to have. And so I think then sometimes it's like, oh, if I used to love my eggs scrambled and now I can't have my eggs scrambled and they're supposed to be more runny, you're like, wait, I don't like those, So I think it can change your food, all the texture.
That's the one thing I tell patients when they're scrambling their egg. I said, you don't want to scramble that. Once it starts getting those brown spots on it, it's going to be too dry.
Right.
And that texture to you is going to be very rubbery tasting. And the other thing is you're going to feel that go down. And like Ashley said, if your eggs, they need to be moist. They're cooked, but they need to be moist.
So I have another one that people often ask me. They're very concerned about cravings. And so sometimes people will say to me beforehand in a more fearful way, like, but what, I always crave sugar and now you're telling me I can't have it, or I always crave. So there's fear of what cravings. And then I'm curious if there are cravings, if you hear from patients that there are cravings and how you have them address it.
Well, there is I've been struggling with a few patients actually lately who are craving things that are completely out of the realm. And I don't honestly know if it's just that head hunger, that's because, they think about it. We've all been there. We're thinking, oh, I want to have that. I want to have that. And do you really want it, or is it just the thought of it sounds good? And a lot of times, I try to rechannel them into something else. Why don't you go for a walk? Try to channel them into another more positive behavior, as opposed to just focusing on what's right there on their mind. Try drinking some water. Are you really, then that becomes an issue. Are you really hungry and really wanting to eat that, or are you really thirsty? Because sometimes when you're thirsty, you start craving bizarre things. So those are a couple things. But I really try to get them to channel when they're craving stuff a different direction. Maybe if they're craving something that's really sweet, I try to have them eat a popsicle. Try to have them have a protein drink. Maybe you need to have a protein drink. I actually just had this conversation with someone about myself personally. Lately, in the evenings, I've been really, I've gotten all my food in, but I've just been craving something sweet. So I just make myself I don't use a pre-made protein because they don't agree with me. So I go and I make myself a chocolate protein drink, just because that meets that need, that chocolate need that I have. And that's usually I love chocolate, so I drink a chocolate protein drink.
Right. And you can do the same thing with a popsicle, or you could do the same thing with a pudding. And that's kind of what I was talking about before, with even making like cashew pudding or something. And so we definitely have those recipes and ideas on the period menu. So you mentioned something. You mentioned water, and I'm going to tie two things together. One of the things I think it's really challenging is So you are having small amounts, and in order to meet your needs, we actually do have to have you, I'll call it eating, but some of that recognizing that eating might be drinking a protein drink. Right. We need to have that happening pretty frequently. And so one hurdle, especially in the beginning, is that I've had patients say, I feel like I literally am like, all I'm doing is like eating all day. It's like, I feel like I'm a baby, you know, in that way. And then on the other side, people have said it's so hard for me to get water in because I'm focused so much on getting the food in that I don't even know when I would have time to get the water in. So can you talk about both of those pieces?
Sure. So first of all, I'm not sure, you know, kind of how you look at fluid, but the bottom line is that what we have our patients strive to do when they first, especially the first 2 weeks, you know, get at least 2 bottles of water, okay? And then your broth, your protein, your popsicles, and your Jell-O, because that all goes down to at room temperature. That stuff all melts, your popsicles and your Jell-O. So that can count. I count that towards your liquid, you know, and it doesn't seem as overwhelming when they realize that their liquid is their liquid, you know. But I definitely want at least 2 bottles of water. And how do you do it? It's constantly sipping. So in the hospital on post-op day 2 with us, you know, they move from that ½ ounce on post-op day 1, and they move to a full ounce on post-op day 2. And I always tease them when I teach bariatric education. Yep, when you first start, you're going to get that little ½ ounce, and it's going to make you pretty full. It's going to make you very full, I'm not going to lie. But on post-op day 2, you get the full ounce, and that's like Thanksgiving with three trips to refill your plate. And so after the first hour of them, you know, filling the little cup and sipping out of the little cup, I have them start sipping from the bottle. And if they're struggling with sipping from the bottle, I go into their room with a bottle of water myself, and I sit and I drink with them. And it's sip, okay, give it a rest. And I mean, we're talking basically just a tiny sip. Come back a little bit later, take a sip. And by doing that, then they realize that, oh, I can get this fluid in. So that we try to do that. I try to do that to help set the precedence for when they go home on how they should try to taste things. I also have them do their protein drinks at breakfast, lunch, and dinner, because, you know, too frequently, even before surgery, we didn't really have meal time. And I truly believe that we need to have specific meals. But if you're getting your protein drink in, you know, yeah, if you want some broth, have some broth, because after a while, you get kind of tired of the sweet protein drink. Thought I'd never say that I got sick of something sweet, because I'm a big sweet girl. But that broth was just heavenly, absolutely heavenly. But you can count your broth, you can count your popsicle as liquid, because it melts down to room temperature. Obviously, water is what we want also, because, you know, as I tell patients, the #1 cause of readmission after bariatric surgery is dehydration. And people think, and they have their surgery in the winter, oh, it's not hot, so I don't have to drink as much. That's not true. You have to drink just as much in the winter as you do in the summer, maybe the summer a little bit more because of, you know, sweating and stuff. So you can incorporate your liquids in that first 2 weeks. When it becomes a challenge is when you start adding in your soft textured food. Ashley, do you recommend that they, you know, don't drink like at least 15 minutes before their meal, nothing during their meal, and nothing for the ½ hour after your meal with bariatric patients?
Yeah, you know, it's a great point. What I found is, depending on the surgery, that can be different. One of the things I'm trying to do, though, is certainly keeping people from gulping down a large amount. So I have some people that actually need to take a couple of sips of water before they have whatever they're having.
That's okay. A sip, not the whole bottle.
Exactly. No. And I think, so for me, actually, the bottle has been I use smaller cups because I found the bottle to be too conducive to chugging. So, you know, we use smaller or like even a mason jar size or that kind of a thing. And so just trying to be a little bit smaller on that piece.
And the other thing that I used to do for myself, so I knew that I was going to get my water in, I would put 4 water bottles on my counter. Mm-hmm. And that was my goal, to get through those water bottles.
Yeah.
And
so And another thing that I think people really struggle with, and I'm curious what you did personally, and in hindsight, if there's anything you would do differently, or and what you're doing now, but is vegetables.
Mm-hmm. I was dying for vegetables. I was dying in the beginning for vegetables. I remember one time I called, gosh, I wasn't quite 6 weeks out, and I wanted a salad. I wanted a salad, I think, more than I wanted oxygen. And I called, I am 4 weeks out. Can I have a salad? And they said, hold on. They went and talked to you, and you came back and you said, yes, at 6 weeks, you can try a salad. I was like, no. I mean, because I was craving a salad. I think what I was craving crunch, which is really funny because now I don't like any crunchy salad at all.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, I don't like, because you know what I think it is? I think the crunchy lettuce, you just don't, I don't think I get as much nutrition out of iceberg and romaine as I do out of field greens. I get more out of the field greens than I do out of the watery lettuce, like a better term to call it. So I will focus my salads on the healthier, dark leafy green salads. Vegetables in the beginning are really hard. Vegetables in the beginning were really hard. I don't think I didn't do any raw. I did nothing raw, no raw vegetables, nothing, probably for 3 or 4 months that I remember. I got nothing raw. And to this day, even with my patients, we don't let them do anything raw for 8 weeks. You know, that means like broccoli or carrots or anything like that. Because that point is still a little too hard to digest. Soft, smushy vegetables, yes, soft, smushy. Now I look forward to eating my vegetables as opposed to then, because I couldn't eat them how I liked them. You know, I couldn't eat them with dip, that's for sure. Mm-hmm. But now I like my vegetables. I like to put my vegetables on the grill. Even in the middle of the winter, I'll be out there putting everything on the grill. You know, be it cauliflower, broccoli, asparagus are my favorite, and green beans and peppers and onions. I'll just grill everything off on the grill and mix them all together and call myself very happy. And honestly, before surgery, I don't think vegetables, they weren't a priority. Mm-hmm. Now they are, because specifically as a way that I eat. And I do have patients who call me, tell me I'm craving vegetables, and I really think that a lot of them are craving that crunch. Yeah. A lot of vegetables, especially the things that they seem to want are the raw vegetables.
Yeah. It's so interesting. And you had talked a bit about that. And again, people can check this out on the blog, but about also how you didn't grow up with vegetables because your mom didn't like them. And so
my mom didn't like vegetables. Vegetables for us were peas out of a can, corn. Sometimes we eventually got to frozen corn. There was never broccoli unless I actually begged my mom, probably around my senior year of high school, can we have broccoli? You know, but she put it in the pan and boiled it. So probably most of the nutrients were boiled away.
And oh, by the way, they certainly, even if they weren't, it certainly was not going to adhere to my rule number 1 of better nutrition, which is that it better be delicious.
You know, I think about it now. Well, it was probably delicious because there was a lot of butter on it.
Oh, there you go. Valid point.
You know, there you go. But at the end of the day, that was what my vegetables consisted of. And they were canned. So if you look at it canned, if you can't get fresh, you should at least try frozen. And if you have to, go with canned. But they're saltier. I was talking to my trainer and I said, gosh, I'm really, really struggling here. She goes, well, open up a can of no salt, no added salt, you know, string beans, and have some of those, you know, with my protein drink. I would have my protein drink, and I'd say, she goes, just have some green beans. Throw in some green beans, you know, when you have your protein drink. And I opened up that can, and I rinse everything if it's canned. And I opened up that can, I rinsed it, I cooked it, I ate it, had to throw it away, it was too salty. I've gotten so away from processed foods that was too salty.
Yeah. So I want to shift gears for a minute, and there are so many. You're such a wealth of resources, and both with your personal experience and also what you've talked about with as it relates to patients that you're working with now. And so I think this will just be the beginning of many conversations. But I want to switch because I too feel that so patients often ask me about their activity and their fitness. And first, let's be clear, let's also debunk myths. A lot of people think, oh, if somebody is overweight or obese, they aren't working out, or they're lazy, or they've never been in a gym.
Not true.
Yeah, 100% not true. And so one of the things that I hear from my patients is they want to get back to strength training very quickly, or they're told to not, to just do cardio, and they're not advised to do strength training. And so, one of the pieces as a practitioner, I will say that, the cardio in the beginning is very intentional for two reasons. One is that it's safer. You've just had a surgery, so you got to let the body recover. But the other is that we do want to really make sure that we get lift off with that fat burning in the beginning. But I'm a huge fan of strength training. And so now, with your knowledge, how have you evolved your recommendations in terms of when someone can start doing some strength training?
At about 2 weeks, they can start with light, because we don't have them we don't want them lifting anything greater than 20 pounds for the first 2 weeks. Despite what you might see on the outside and it looks healed, absolutely does not reflect what's going on inside your gut, because those are still healing. Those are still healing. I'll give you an example. You could try to help someone move some furniture, and you can tear inside one of those suture lines that's inside, and then you end up with some significant issues. So it's slow progression. It's absolutely slow progression. I'm not sure about you, Ashley, but I was working out yesterday, and she gave me 12.5-pound dumbbells to do arm curls, and I thought I was going to die. So 12 pounds, 10 pounds doesn't sound like a lot, but when you're actually doing it, it's tough. It's tough when you're doing repetitive motion and your muscles getting tired. I truly believe that you have to have cardio and you have to have strength training. If you do purely cardio, you're eventually going to plateau.
Right.
What you're doing by strength training is you're just keeping those muscles burning and creating that internal fire, for the lack of a better term to call it. So guess what? You are now burning your calories a whole lot different than you're just doing cardio.
Yeah.
It really needs to be a balance. You can do too much cardio. I believe you can do too much weight. You have to meet somewhere in the middle.
Totally. And I think, the same things that we say for anyone in terms of your cardio is, intervals and varying it and doing different things. But one of the things we have to be careful about, and I think this is under addressed, is also that, exercise, especially if as you start to take it up a notch, can certainly make you hungrier. And so one of the things, it can definitely make you thirstier and impact your hydration. And so one of the things that I focus on a lot with my bariatric patients is, what are you having before? What are you having right after? You might do well sipping on something during. You might do well, like somebody might say, oh, I'm going to do, 20 minutes of cardio, and then I might drink a protein drink. I might wait, 5 minutes while, drink it and wait, and then do my weights, right? Because the other part is what we don't want you to do is get so hungry that you feel that you need much more than you're allowed to have. And
right.
I think,
and I've been there before.
Yeah.
I've been there before I realized that, what I've learned is that within an hour of working out, after I'm done, I need to either drink a protein drink or I need to go eat a healthy, balanced meal. That doesn't mean go and have pancakes and waffles or anything like that, or have a big steak. That means have a healthy, balanced meal.
Exactly. And one of the things I also recommend sometimes in there, and people can reach out to me if they want more information, but sometimes I'll even do, having water and have a blend of liquid aminos in there so that you're getting those, but depending on your strength training. So I think that's right.
Sometimes I do aminos in my water.
Right.
During my strength training. one of the things I never do, first of all, my trainer tells me, she goes, you're just too hyper. There are people who do pre-workout drinks. Yeah.
Right.
I am number one, I'm petrified of them because all I think is that, oh, it's got to have something in there that's just going to amp my heart rate up.
Yeah.
And if you think you're going to do something like that, be sure you check with your doctor before you do it.
Totally.
Yeah.
And
most randomly thinking, oh, this person works out a lot and they should be able to tell me that. No, before you start anything, make sure your physician, your bariatric surgeon, your primary care doctor, if you have a cardiologist or anybody like that, that they're on board with what you're doing, because you don't want to go and start going, yee-haw, I'm going to be a warrior, and then you hurt yourself.
Right.
And Ashley alluded to something way, way back before she and I started talking, is that life happens, okay? Guess what? Life continues to happen after bariatric surgery. You know that? It does. So you're out there and you're riding your mountain bike or doing whatever your husband does, that he falls down a hill and ends up breaking his shoulder, and it sidetracks him. It sidetracks him. I've seen it with other patients where they hurt their back, or they were in a car accident, and now they can't do the things that they were doing before surgery or after surgery. They were healthy, and darn it, they had this car accident. So their decreased activity does not reflect the same amount of food that they're getting in. And so you have to be cognizant of that. If you've increased your calories because you're working out a little bit harder, you have to take into account, if you're pulling back from your workout, that you can't keep that same calorie load. Right. Ashley?
100%. And that you may need to strategically change the macro balance or split it up in different ways. And it's a great segue. We're such a good team, Liz. It's a great segue into also just what I want to call this section, the real talk. Because I think some of the things that are not talked about that often are some of the things that can actually be the hardest to navigate. And so I thought we would we might run a little bit over. We'll take about 5 or 6 minutes to talk about these. But something that you bring up, you said if you're, you need to talk to your doctor about this, and you need to talk. So one of the things that I find is that for a number of different reasons, really good reasons, and I respect people's individual reasons, my patients are not wanting to share that they're having bariatric surgery. And the only downside that I have in that part is that it can make certain things challenging. So I'm not concerned. I'm always open to telling people to say like white lies if it's for better, for their better health. If you don't want to talk to somebody about something, or and any of that, or blame it on me, or blame it on your mom, or like anything like that. But if you're going to a trainer and you don't want people at the gym to know that you've had surgery, and as a result you're not telling the trainer there, you are actually really endangering yourself, and you're also not being fair to that professional. And I think that one of the pieces for me on that part is really being able to work with, figuring out who your inner circle is of people who are going to be aware of this, and work with them, but really not to engage with a practitioner that you're not comfortable sharing with. And that may mean that, you don't work with the trainer at the gym that you go to. You actually work with a trainer online, and then put into practice what they're recommending, at the gym, et cetera. So I want to use that as an introduction to say, in sort of this real talk space, so some of the things that I get from people are, I get comments from people, and it was really hard for me as somebody who has lost weight in the past. My patients will say this, and they'll say like, what are you doing? And like, oh my gosh, you're losing weight, or you look so good, or wow, you've lost, you've lost a bunch of weight. And my patients will say things like, thanks, that just makes me think of like, you knew that I was really heavy before, or any of that stuff.
You thought I was ugly. You thought I was ugly. You look good. What, was I ugly before?
Right, right.
And we actually had that. We frequently have that talk in support groups, because especially as the new patients come in and their weight, how in the beginning your weight is just falling off of you, and they're like, people say all this stuff to me. I said, well, do they know you have surgery? Have you shared that with anybody? With me, everybody knew, because I was so desperate to be healthy, to not feel like, oh my gosh, I can't take another step. Have you shared it with them? Do they know? Because I truly believe you don't get that same comment from people who know versus people who don't know what you've been through. You know, the other issue that what happens is people don't know. They think you're sick. They think you're ill. There were people that I hadn't seen, and they're like, "Wow, you look so different. Are you?" I said, "I am okay. I am not ill." What happened? I said, I was very, very forthright. I had bariatric surgery. And they look, I said, no, it's not the easy way out. It's the hardest thing I've ever done. The absolute hardest thing I've ever done, because, you know what? I'm a person just like you, but now I have a tool, and now I'm working with that tool to help me not go over the edge, you know. And I remember in the beginning, there were people, I would walk down the halls of the hospital, and, you know, people would look at me like, oh, God, you're too, the word, and the being called skinny absolutely drives me out of my mind, because I'm not skinny. I am fit. I am healthy. Yeah. So that word skinny is like, oh, you're too skinny. You need to eat a sandwich. No, I don't. No, I don't. And the thing is you have to find your voice to speak for yourself. And I mean, that's a whole different ballgame right there, because frequently people who are obese don't speak for themselves or don't speak up at all.
Right.
Or they become angry.
And what about in that space too, when people will say things like, you know, it like, and it really is, so they won't even say things, but it's like, I've had patients who have said to me, they're not invited out to eat with friends anymore, or people say you're not fun anymore, you know, that kind of a thing. Like, how have you navigated that? Like, it does change relationships, right?
Yeah, and as a matter of fact, that I speak to that in my pre-op education class, and I had that classified under psychological distress or depression, because many patients feel left behind because they don't get asked out. They don't get, you know, asked to go to happy hour with their friends. What their friends don't realize is that, yeah, they can go to happy hour, but they may just sip on water as opposed to, you know, having a drink and chicken thighs or chicken wings or whatever it is you have at happy hour these days. But what I encourage my patients to tell people is include me. I'm there to be social with you guys. I don't have to eat with you guys to be social.
Right. And do you think sometimes I feel like it's because the other people there don't want to have the judgment, you know, on their, they feel that they're being judged if you're not. So I can appreciate, I appreciate it on both sides. Yeah.
I get it. I do. I understand. You know, honestly, I never went through that. But what I did go through were the people who said, oh, you're too skinny, you need to eat a sandwich. No, I don't, because I have a very healthy eating plan that I follow. And what happens is I think people are so used to seeing you at the 280, 300, whatever weight you are, people are used to seeing that person. And now they're seeing this much smaller version of you. And you kind of go, I remember looking at my husband one day and had to kind of blink a minute and go, whoa, what happened? You know, it seemed like we went to bed last night, but this morning you look different. It's kind of like those poor pregnant women. They wake up with a flat belly, or they go to bed with a flat belly, and they wake up with a big giant bump in the morning. It's like, whoa, what happened there? You know, and sometimes you see someone, and then boom, they look so drastic, and you know, the next time you see them, you know. But you need to find yourself and speak for yourself. And I'm good. How do you deal with it when? And I've asked patients this, that they've chosen not to tell anybody. I have a couple patients who had surgery, and they told absolutely no one. A couple people know, and that is it. And I said, well, what did you tell them? And this is the pat answer. I told them I had my gallbladder out and I had to eat differently. That's a lot what people say. I had my gallbladder out and I had to eat differently.
Interesting.
But I'll even ask them, so what happens if you have an issue? What happens if you develop a problem? What do you do? What do you say? You know? And they said, well, I don't know. I'll cross that bridge if I get there.
Right.
You need to let someone know, because if you have a complication and you're out, maybe you got out to lunch with some coworkers or something, and all of a sudden you're sitting at the table and something you eat doesn't agree with you and you have to run to the bathroom, what are they going to think? How are you going to explain that? And I haven't ever really gotten a straight answer on that one.
Mm. Yeah, it's just that and a lot of it is fear driven. And so I think, because you don't want to feel like that failure, it's like, wait, let me.
If you have surgery, you've done all these other diets.
Right.
Are you going to fail at that again?
Right. But the reality is, and what we're saying is that it really is about being able to be more successful with the support of others. So, yeah.
Sometimes to be successful, you have to get I shouldn't say sometimes, you have to have your head on right, because this is a process that is not easy. You have hills you have to climb up, you have valleys that you're going to drop into, and you may stay on this flat road for a while, and then boom, all of a sudden you've gotten a curve thrown at you, and now you're going up that hill again. How do you deal, and that's something to always think about. How do you deal when you're thrown a curveball? How do you do it? What do you do? Do you go back to your old habits, and do you medicate yourself with food? So those things are important to look at, how, and start working on it, for yourself. How are you going to deal with the curveballs that life throws at you? What is going to be something that can distract you from that, to help you over that? Whether it be meditating, listening to music, exercising, in terms of, do you go out and just give it all, or do you do yoga? What is it that brings you back to your center?
Right. Oh, I could talk to you for hours. We can't. So I'm sure that as I said, that we'll have you back and we'll get some more topics covered. Matt, I think that we will. I don't know if there were any questions that came in that we didn't answer that are burning ones, but I can certainly say that we have a lot of resources on the website too.
I think we covered it. I honestly, I think everything. I think we're good.
Great, wonderful. Liz, thank you so much.
Welcome.
Love this, and as I said, you can read more about Liz's story on the interview that I have on my blog at ashleykofapproved.com. And we will be back to you with June for Better Nutrition, Better Be Plant-Based, to talk about the power of plants. So really looking forward to it, and thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Ashley.
Take care.
Bye, Matt.
Thank you, Elizabeth. Thank you, Ashley. Bye-bye.
Bye, guys. Bye-bye.